So, if you're here watching this video, I'm guessing you're someone who's tried all the things, right? Self-help books, cognitive therapy, yoga, manifesting. And for some reason, there's still a piece missing. I've been there too. I remember pouring my time, energy, and motivation into healing, only to feel like I was spinning my wheels. I'd understand everything logically, why I shouldn't feel anxious or upset, but my body just wasn't on the same page. It took me a long time to discover somatic work. It's still not as mainstream as CBT or mindset work. So it's no surprise that when people come to me, they're often confused about what I actually do, or what somatic trauma work really is and how it helps. That confusion makes complete sense. There are a lot of different styles out there. So when you hear somatic work, you might think of yoga, qigong, or breath work, as these are common entry points. You've probably seen videos on YouTube, and I share practices like that too. Because, let's be honest, life is stressful. And why shouldn't we use all the tools at our disposal? Relaxation practices like this are incredible for helping us regulate in the moment. They give us relief, help us function, and sometimes that's exactly what we need. That said, nervous system support isn't the same thing as trauma resolution. These practices can soothe the system, but they don't necessarily reach the deeper layers, those implicit memories, the stored trauma patterns that often drive our reactions and behaviors. I worked with a client, I'll call her Amy, who showed up on our very first session incredibly prepared. She was well-educated, highly intelligent, and spent years reading, journaling, and researching, trying to fix things in her marriage. They were about to start marriage counseling as a last-ditch effort, and she came to me to work on herself, to try and make her relationship work. In that first session, we explored what the decision to stay felt like in her body. Not just her thoughts, but her felt sense. At one point, she said,
"I just don't listen to myself. I don't trust my own thoughts sometimes."
2 weeks later, she returned and said,
"I owe you so much. I was doing all the exercises, and within 3 days, I left my husband."
She described walking through her house, doing laundry, and being suddenly overwhelmed by body memories.
Everywhere I looked, this chair, that hallway, memories just hit me. And I felt it in my chest, in my legs. I wanted to scream. I was stomping around the house thinking, "F you, this happened, you did this," and I just said, "I can't do this anymore, I'm done."
Since then, she's been navigating life as a newly single woman and continuing the work of healing her attachment wounds. She credits that somatic session as the turning point.
I felt 1,000,000 pounds lighter.
She told me,
like the darkness had lifted, like I finally stood up for myself.
That kind of change doesn't come from mindset work alone. It comes from getting underneath the story, into the body. Because when we're triggered and find ourselves repeating something we don't want to be doing, some reaction or coping strategy, that's usually coming from much deeper in the system. Those patterns weren't formed recently. They're often rooted in earlier experiences where something didn't get to happen the way it needed to. And that's the core difference between general nervous system support and what I do in one-to-one somatic trauma work. In my private sessions, everything is individualized. We slow it all way down, tracking what your body's doing in real time, working with both the nervous system and the attachment system to begin repairing the processes where overwhelm or rupture once occurred. Sometimes that's connected to a clear trauma memory. More often, though, we're working with subtle patterns, things that didn't seem traumatic at the time, but left your system without the support it needed. And that's important to understand. Trauma isn't about how bad something was. It's about whether your system had the capacity, support, and safety to move through it. This is why trauma work, when done properly, should not feel hard or re-traumatizing. I know that might be a new concept and very different from what you've experienced or imagined trauma work to be like. But true trauma-informed work is slow and steady. It's designed to keep you within your window of tolerance, which means I've got you, and I won't let you get to the point of overwhelm. When done properly, sessions can actually feel fun, even playful at times. After 20 years of training, I have many tools in my toolbox, and we mix and match them based on your individual needs, how your system responds. It's a collaborative process that we create together. And because we follow the system's lead, this kind of work can take us to powerful and unexpected transformation. One of my most successful clients, I'll call him Brian, came to me feeling completely lost. His father had died the year before, and he'd stepped into running the family business, something he never wanted to do. Add in a painful breakup with a girlfriend he deeply loved, and he was starting to spiral. In our first session, he said,
"It feels like there's this weight pressing down on me. I'm just going through the motions, working 12, 13 hours a day, providing for everyone but myself. It's like the real me is locked in a cage and there's some imposter running my life."
At the time, Brian was convinced he might be bipolar. His moods were swinging between intense grief and hyperactivity. What made him different from the average client wasn't the strength of his emotions. It was how open and imaginative he was. He wasn't guarded or analytical. He didn't overthink our exercises. He just dove in. His dream has always been to sing and act. But somewhere along the way, he'd shut that part of himself down. When I asked what that version of him felt like, he said,
"Light, energetic. Like I can feel the wind on my face and the heat of the sun. I feel important, like I matter."
We worked through the body using parts work and somatic resourcing. One session, we imagined his big self, the one keeping him trapped, helping his caged self escape. He laughed, then cried and said,
"I feel like another part of my brain just woke up."
A few weeks before Christmas, he sent me a link to a recording. He'd uploaded a track to Spotify of himself singing Silent Night. I was completely blown away and even felt shivers run up and down my spine. His voice is hauntingly beautiful.
That wasn't just a healing moment. It was a breakthrough. And the most remarkable part? Our sessions were never heavy or re-traumatizing. They were playful, creative, even fun. Brian came in desperate to win his girlfriend back, but in the process of reconnecting with his own voice, literally and metaphorically, he found something more powerful, a way back to himself. This is what happens when we stop pushing, stop analyzing, and allow the body to lead. That's because trauma isn't stored where logic lives. It's stored in sensation. The right brain processes through emotion, imagery, and body cues, which is very different from the left, which works through logic and language. Fear and overwhelm aren't logical. We can understand something all day long, but that doesn't mean we aren't irrationally triggered. When we work somatically, we're going in through the actual memory, not our interpretation of it. Trauma and attachment patterns have to be accessed through sensation, emotion, posture, and movement, body memory, because that's where the old responses still live. This is why we focus on the body mindfully with focused attention. This allows us to figure out exactly what is packaged up in there, even when it defies logic or isn't immediately clear. Have you ever unpacked a moving box and found a t-shirt in with your pots and pans? It can feel like that in session, like your body hands you this mix of things that seem unrelated, but they're all part of the same story. Once we know what's wrapped up in the memory, however illogical, we work to find out what didn't happen that needed to happen. There's almost always a specific response the body wanted to have that it didn't get to complete. Maybe we needed to fight or run or even fly, but we had to hold that in to be socially acceptable. Or did we need support? Our mother to hug us, our grandmother to tell us it was okay, a caring adult to make us feel safe. Something we didn't get that we should have gotten, which then changed our attachment pattern and caused us to go from safe and secure to a protective adaptation that's no longer serving us. It's usually a combination of these factors. So what we're doing in somatic work is we're finding the exact thing the body wanted to say or do but didn't get to, and bringing in the right amount of support that feels good to the system. This works almost like a lock and key mechanism, where the exact right response unlocks that implicit memory, allowing us to change the pattern, while a response that isn't perfectly matched, breathwork for example, essentially acts like a band-aid, helping us to hold together, but not actually healing the wound. Another wonderful thing clients usually don't know in advance is that when we do this work properly, you're never wrong. How often do you get to hear and experience that? No matter what your system throws up, it's always right. There's always gold there. One client, Mara, once told me,
"Being wrong in every situation is exhausting."
She'd spent years shape-shifting to survive. And when I asked where that started, she said,
"My mom told me no one cares about a Black woman's tears."
That's not just a belief, it's a survival imprint. And when that's the world your nervous system has grown up in, we don't override it, we honor it, we listen. My job is to support you in that process, to really hear what your system's telling us. And from there, we pivot. It's almost like improv, with your system leading the way. Then it's my job to adapt, interpret, and guide in a way that actually makes sense in your body. When we follow your system in this way, bringing in the support it needed and allowing it to move through the response it originally wanted, we're introducing something positive into a memory that was shaped by pain. And here's the wild part. As brilliant as our bodies are, they don't know the difference between imagining something and actually living it. This means if we go back into that moment together through felt experience, not just thinking, and your system finally gets what it needed, then the right side brain registers the experience we create together as real. Remember, the right brain doesn't work in logic or language. It works in sensation, emotion, and relationship. So if the experience feels real enough, we can actually change the memory, not just metaphorically, but biologically. The brain updates the original imprint, and over time, that shift rewires both our behavior and the protective adaptations that were built around it. I know that this might feel hard to believe, maybe even a little too good to be true. But multiple neuroimaging studies confirm that when we work in this way, the brain circuits involved in memory and emotion can change. Researchers have observed shifts in the areas tied to trauma and stress response, especially when safety and new experiences are introduced. This is the heart of why somatic trauma work can be so powerful, especially when it's supported by someone who's trained to help guide the process. When you're working on your own, you may still find tools that help, but without that tailored support, it's harder to find the precise experience your system needs to really shift things. That's what we're doing together in session. Not simply managing symptoms, but listening closely so that the body can finally do what it needed to do all along. And when we do that, this work can feel deeply empowering, sometimes even easeful, playful, and filled with moments of real relief. So I hope that this helped to clarify what somatic trauma work really is, how it differs from general relaxation practices, what you might be looking for in a practitioner, and what to expect if we work together one-on-one. If something from today's talk resonated with you, I'd love to hear what landed. If you're looking for support and curious about how I can help, feel free to reach out. The details are below. Until then, go gently and remember, your body is always communicating with you. All we need to do is pause and listen.